All right. You're listening to the 5 Squared Podcast, the podcast where we bring you tips for your business and your life. Our goal in this podcast is to leave you a little bit smarter, provide you with some ideas, impart some wisdom perhaps, and even leave you with some tools and techniques to help you out. The 5 Squared Podcast is produced weekly for your enrichment. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter at 5s Squared. Find us on Facebook. All right. Now let's get started with your host, business consultant, executive coach, and founder of 5 Squared, Tim Fives. That's me. What's up? What's up, peeps? So, little Christmas edition, I guess. It's coming up on the weekend. It's we're the Thursday here before Christmas. So Merry Christmas to all my listeners. If you don't celebrate Christmas, have a wonderful weekend and happy holidays to you. But I gotta go on a little bit of a tangent here. So every Christmas I'm like, let's make something a little different, and we've done Cornish hens and duck and all this, and my wife and I got the bright idea to do goose. I'm thinking this would be great. We've never made a goose before. Goose is averaging between $6 and $7 a pound, right? An average goose is 10 pounds. That's an expensive dinner right there. And I'm just thinking, why is goose so expensive? They fly over our heads all the time in flocks, by the thousands here. Like, it should be pennies per pound, not that expensive. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So, feel free to tweet me and explain to me why goose is so expensive for the holidays. But I'm digressing from our real purpose today. I gave a talk this week to one of my networking groups about how we look at problems within the business. And funny story, we, as you know, probably from the previous podcast, that I had the privilege and honor of working for EMC years ago, and I ran their strategic business team all around the world, and it was great. And one of the things that was illuminating, me and one of my peers were sitting at a bar after being at a client, and he's this mathematician from Oxford. I think some good school from England. He was a Brit, good guy. I like to remind him that we won that war, though. But anyway, he was coming out and saying, Tim, there's a pattern to all these problems that we're seeing. Whether it was product development issues or IT roadmaps or just general business analysis stuff that we were doing. And we're at the bar, and honestly, I'm not going to lie about it. I just wanted a beer. It was a long day. And, he's going on about this, and he's trying to map out some equation to figure this out. And again, I'm like, okay, this is great. I get it. I get where you're going. But what's the practical application? And what we boiled it down to, and this has been a tenet of it, how we've done everything since, or I've done everything since, looking at problems within businesses, is that it boils down to 3 key issues, okay? Or 3 key elements to each issue, and that's people, process, and technology, okay? So if you have a business problem that doesn't have some combination of those 3 things, tweet me at 5 Squared and let me know, because we couldn't come up with one. And it's really, really fascinating when you have companies that come in and they're pitching their product as the end-all to your problems. And this is something that I would be very wary of, because if they're not addressing the change management issues, the people issues, how people are going to interact with the newest system, things like that, it's doomed to fail. Like, you have to have the training and the change management element in there. Especially when it's a fundamental change, if you're doing from one system to another system or whatever, implementing an ERP solution as an example. Those are fundamental changes to your organization that require the people be brought along during that process. And I've seen a lot of projects come off the rails where the training and the change management aspect has been neglected, and the project gets over the line and then fails after the fact. Pardon me. The other thing that we look at is the process. And, a lot of the technologies today especially have where they have the processes that you can implement to make your business better and faster, right? And really leverage the power of the tools. A lot of times when we go in to do a remediation, we're looking at processes that, well, hey, just take what we're doing now and implement it. And it requires a tremendous amount of configuration, and it's not optimized. And what you've done is really taken an old process, something that's probably been done forever in your company, put it in the system, and made an old process just faster. And generally that wreaks havoc as well. So just some things like that. And this is where a good analyst will come in and work with the teams to make sure that the system is being optimized for them, not that you're trying to optimize the system based on what you've been doing. And it's a subtle thing, but it's very important that companies keep an open mind when they're doing an implementation like that to leverage the best of the software to get the most out of it, and minimize the customization and hence therefore the cost. It's a big, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine where companies just go in and say, give us your process and then we'll dump it in. Generally, services firms will do that because that's where they get their money, right? And not a bad thing, but not a good thing necessarily for the company, especially if you're witnessing that today and seeing that you're over budget and behind schedule. The people thing, you can't underestimate the people side of this. People are what make your company tick. They are pivotal to your success and ongoing success. So having them bought in, having them getting the training, having them get comfortable. I've heard stories recently of a doctor's office here, and they go out, put in a new system, and never train the employees, and then they have patients coming in to check in, and the person behind the counter is like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? And the stress and the strain that it puts on those people and on the patients in that case was horrendous. So, when you're looking at a project that you're looking at, make sure you're looking at the fundamentals across the entire organization, on the people side of it, the process side of it, and then the technology, because those are what's gonna bite you. And when I was talking to the group this week, what are some symptoms of that, right? When should you be like, hey, maybe I need some help here? Really look at, if you got disgruntled employees, right? Employees that are not performing as well as they should be. Things of that nature is a good indication that there's a deeper problem in that employee sphere. The process, I call it the Sally Shoebox effect, right? We create personas around problems like this, and if you have an organization where you're in there or your organization, and there's one or two people that hold the keys to the kingdom, that's a problem, right? So I refer to it as Sally Shoebox because it's the one person in your organization that you go to for everything. You need a purchase order, you go to Sally. You need a contact, you go to Sally. You need the AR report, you go to Sally. And she's magically pulling it out of some box under her desk, right? Hence the shoebox. So again, that's a symptom of a process issue there. Customer service is also a big indicator of a poor process. If you're using things like some scorecarding for your customer service, Net Promoter Score, those types of things, and they're low, generally you got a process and people issue around that, with probably a little technology sprinkled into it. If you're looking at your technology sphere, symptoms that you've got problems in the other two, it really come down to it's over budget and behind schedule. Or you've looked and you said, hey, we've tried to do this 2 or 3 times and it's always failed. And you've got software on the shelf. It's a good bet that the people helping you do that implementation have not looked at the whole picture, because it's what contributes to most of the software failures. And the thing that always gets me is, when you start to look at cost, right, everybody starts to cut out the change management and the training and those types of things, or think that they can do it on their own. And sometimes they can. But, they're like, just get the system in, we'll take care of the rest. And that's really a high-risk maneuver, right? And you got to really sit down and ask yourself, if you're going to pay, let's say, $100,000 for a piece of software, and you've cut out $10,000 for the training and whatnot, is that worth the risk, right? Is it worth the risk to throw away $100,000 worth of work? So just, some thoughts to think about as you're going into the new year when you're starting to think about your projects and the things that you got going on. And, have a Merry Christmas. And we'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much for listening. This is your host, Tim Fives. We hope you'll pass along our web address, www.fivessquared.com. To your friends and colleagues, be sure to check out our archives for previous versions of the podcast, and follow us on Twitter @fivesquared.com @fivesquared. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.